What's good, guys? Fantasy Joe back here with some more fantasy football content. Today, I am talking fantasy football sleepers. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Check out all the value videos on the channel already. Check out the fantasy profiles on there. The early round decision series got Devontae Adams versus Marvin Harrison Jr., ETN versus Kyron. We've also got Jonathan Taylor versus Saquon already out on the channel, so check out all those videos. Stay tuned for league winners as well as the rest of the bus series. Everything you need to win your fantasy football championship is right here, so hit that subscribe button if you want to be your friends and family in fantasy football. Without further ado, though, let's get into our first wide receiver sleeper, none other than himself, Christian Watson. Now last year, his season was derailed by injuries, as you can see the stats down here. Only played in 9 games, 422 receiving yards, 15.1 per, 5 receiving touchdowns. But I want to point out a few things about that. So he got at least 5 targets in 6 out of the 8 games he played over 50% of snaps in. This is important because that means he'd be on pace for 105 targets on a 17-game pace, and likely more if he can actually stay on the field and stay consistent. I think if he can stay on the field, he'll clearly be the number 1 wide receiver for this team. I think Jayden Reed can compete in that category, but I do think if Christian Watson can prove his health, it would be his job to win. Now, he is a great athlete with extremely great size as well. Obviously, 6'4", runs a 4.36. The speed score, the burst score, everything like that is off the charts. Was an absolute freak production-wise in college. We've seen him look really good on the NFL field. It really has just been struggling with injuries for him. He saw a hamstring specialist this offseason, worked on equaling out the strength in each of his hamstrings to hopefully prevent more pulls in the future. Hopefully that helps and can keep him on the field. But if this guy goes out there and suits up for 15 weeks, I think he's going to smash on his draft position. Like I said, the athleticism, everything we've seen on the field, see him succeed. He's still young. And he has a quarterback in Jordan Love that's likely going to throw for 4,000-plus yards and 30-plus touchdowns, and it could be a lot more than that in each of those stats. And if that happens, then he's got a great chance to be a major contributor, have a ton of yards, have a ton of touchdowns, and just be really fantastic for fantasy football. So I think this is a guy you can get in round 8 or later that is going to make your fantasy football team significantly better if you can get your hands on him. Okay, our next sleeper, we've got Jackson Smith and Najigba currently going even behind Watson further down between round 8 and 9. Now, we'll take a look at this season last year. Now, he did play most of the year, but he did start the season injured with a broken hand, which I think derailed some of his training camp work, things like that, just getting to know the team. He did have 93 targets. He was able to catch 63 of those. Not bad numbers for a rookie, but I do think he'll have dramatically better numbers. They have a new, more pass-happy offensive coordinator. JSN was very unhappy with the last offensive coordinator they had in Seattle. Lockett last year as well declined a ton. I think that JSN is clearly the number 2 on this offense now behind DK Metcalf, and could even fight for the number 1 spot by the end of the year. But I think he is clearly the number 2, and that Lockett is now the number 3 with how much he declined last year. So I think there is a bit of a changing of the guard, and JSN was the number 1 wide receiver in his class coming out. Absolute freak. Obviously now you probably put Puka in that category, but still, it just proves the talent that he has and how good he can be for fantasy football. A lot of these year 2 wide receivers, you expect him to make that leap. I don't think his year was that bad when you consider the air yard, 569 air yards compared to more receiving yards. That just shows you the type of utilization he was having close to the line of scrimmage, things of that nature. I think he's a guy who can thrive in the slot, go all over the field, and just beat people and get open. I think he's a really talented wide receiver who comes with a really low draft cost. I think Geno is going to throw the ball more this year, throw a lot more touchdowns, and just be more efficient through the air. JSN is greatly going to benefit from that. He's an elite route runner. I'm very, very confident in the talent he possesses as an NFL player. And right now you get a major draft value on a guy who can make a year 2 leap. A lot of receivers you bet on to make that year 2 leap, and you're getting a discount on JSN. So I would really like to draft him. Okay, next up we have Josh Palmer. Now Palmer this last year was pretty solid. He was on pace for 104 targets last year. There's less competition now than there was then including last year. At the beginning of the year, he's competing with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Now, by the end of the year, both of those guys went down, and that's a situation he finds himself in now. But like I said, on pace for 104 targets last year, 988 yards, and that was with two of those guys suiting up for half the season or more. Now, Justin Herbert's a stud quarterback there. I think he's going to throw a ton of yards, a ton of touchdowns, and he is going to need Joshua Palmer. Even if they have somebody step up in a major way, Josh Palmer's still the number 2 on this offense, number 2 for a Justin Herbert-led team, which means he should be very good for fantasy football. Like I said, he's a left for dead, and he's a worst case number 2. He's currently going in the over 154th position in drafts, which means he's like a 12th or 13th round draft pick right now or later. You can get this guy with one of your last picks. But like I said, with the touchdown upside that Justin Herbert possesses, the necessity of Josh Palmer on this offense, I would bet on him. He looked a lot better to me last year, especially, but he is going to be utilized. He's going to need to produce. They need him, and those touchdowns and yards have to go somewhere. And Josh Palmer, I think, has a great chance of soaking a lot of those up for a guy you can get in the late double-digit rounds. Great quarterback connection that's established already. I would just make that investment. He's a guy I think could get 120, 125 targets, something like that. You can get so late. Yeah, he's definitely a name I would be keeping an eye on. Okay, so this next player might be a little bit more of a year from now, but I still think he's a great prospect. So Jermaine Burton was a third-round pick by the Cincinnati Bengals this last year. He should be the number 3 on this offense. The reason I throw him out there, we've seen T. Higgins and Jamar Chase each go down with injuries each of the last 2 years. If something like that was to happen, I think Jermaine Burton would be a really good success for fantasy football. I think he was number 3. He can succeed in this offense. You add in that injury risk that upgrades him. This guy's left for dead in drafts. You can give him in the last round. I think he's a really talented wide receiver. When I watched his college tape, he was very high on my wide receiver rankings coming out. Then he goes to a great situation in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. He's going to throw a ton of touchdowns, like we were saying. He's one of those guys who throws for mid 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns. And when you have a guy like that who can get such a big piece of the pie, you absolutely want a piece of that. Here are his college stats. Not the most impressive numbers-wise, but when you see the target numbers, it's a lot more impressive. 20.5 yards per reception. I think he's going to be a guy who won't have the most volume, but is explosive enough to make plays down the field to be an impact player for fantasy football. This is a guy I would really be targeting in dynasty leagues. He'd be a great buy low to me. And then one other name I'll throw out there just as an honorable mention before we end the video, Dontavian Wicks. He's a talented rookie who's shined on the field. He can make that 2-year leap. He still has a quarterback who's going to throw for a ton of yards, a ton of touchdowns. He was among the leaders in yards per route run of all rookie wide receivers and was 17th in the league in yards per route run last year. If anything was to happen to any guys around him, I think he's an instant guy who can step up and be a contributor for a fantasy football lineup. So he's a name to keep an eye on as the season progresses. If you guys have made it to this point in the video, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you have any questions or comments, drop them in the comment section down below. I'll respond as always. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to stick around for running back sleepers, quarterback sleepers, all that type of stuff. So, league winners as well. This has been Fantasy Joe. Thank you guys so much for watching.